So just about 6 weeks ago, I found myself in a very unlikely place. For those of you who know me well, I found myself on a houseboat on Lake Powell in Glen Canyon, and I was with a handful of other families who were from the Jackson area. And over the past 2 years of COVID, myself and these families spent a ton of time together in the most remote places we could find in the desert, away from crowds, in Escalante and Robbers Roost and Bears Ears. And we were getting into this sport of canyoneering and going into the slot canyons, and we all had kids, sort of middle school, upper elementary school, and it's just a great sport, super challenging for these kids who can ski Corbett's and have rafted Clarkmore Whitewater, and also challenging for the adults. So anyways, a good friend, CB, we're going to call him, many of you in this room will recognize who it is. He was the one who was really the ringleader of this canyoneering stuff, and he had these piles of maps and books and apps and this and that, and you know, we trusted him to be our leader, and we had some great adventures over the last couple of years. So it was his idea to get a boat on Lake Powell and access all these remote canyons that you can only get to from the lake. And so we end up with, nobody has any boating skills. You know, of course, we're like, what about the carbon footprint and this and that? So anyways, we get there, we just embrace it. You know, all the food, all the booze, all the kids were mad about it. It was super fun. So we finally, the first day, the whole day, you just drive this 30-foot boat. It's like as big as this building. And you're like driving it through the water, and it was this big adventure to get it into this really remote cove where you had big enough walls that you would be protected from the winds, and especially in the spring, it's really windy. You guys all been in the desert, you know how disastrous that can be. And then we had a couple of little boats that would get us around in the water. They weren't little. We had a pontoon boat with 13 paddle boards on it, and a ski boat. And so every day we would go out on these adventures because we wanted to see all these slot canyons. Well, we heard about the water levels in Lake Powell, and so the first day we paddleboard, we park the boat, we paddleboard up these channels to get to the best slot canyon in Lake Powell, and we run into quicksand. Kids jump off the kayaks or off the paddleboards, and they're like up to their knees and kick quicksand, and they're starting to panic, and an adult's like, don't panic, and steps off his board, and then he starts panicking. So that day was sort of, it wasn't a wash. We just did a lot of paddleboarding, but we weren't able to go into the slot canyon. But you know, we'd be out for 6-8 hours, and the second day we do get to a slot canyon. We are able to get off our paddle boards. The book says the slot canyon is 45 minutes. It took us, well, 3 hours. I turned it around after 2.5, walking in like wet rivers in mud up to your ankles for 3 hours to get to the slot canyon, which was supposed to be 45 minutes away. Then the kids get there, and it's like they had to swim up to their chest in the slot canyon. So we finally decided, here's my story starts here. We decided to take a rest day, and we're all super excited. We're gonna read books, we're gonna drink coffee, we're gonna play games, we're gonna hike on the beach. And so CB, the one who is the most obsessed with the slot canyons, he takes his paddleboards a ways away, like a couple hundred yards, and he has some climbing shoes, and 2 hours later he shows back up and he says, you guys, we gotta go. I got the perfect adventure for us. We're gonna climb to the top of this wall that's protecting our boat. It's like 1,000 feet up. This beautiful, gorgeous canyon wall. Except there's one thing, we gotta pass this one area. So we're all like, okay, you know, we pack our shoes in our packs, we all paddleboard down. We have to like stack the paddle boards, climb up this cliff where people are like holding onto each other's legs to get up the cliff. When we get into this little, I don't even know how to describe it, like a little hole that's filled with sand, and the kids start finding sunglasses, and it's basically from disasters on Lake Powell from 20 years ago or whatever, when the water was that high. 2 years ago, I guess. I don't know. So everybody gets their approach shoes on. We all have a harness. People so there's like 6 adults and 5 kids. And there were a couple ropes, and so we hike up another 60 vertical feet, and we're above the water now. And the kids are screwing around, and the rock is really sandy and breaking away, and whatever, we're having fun. And all of a sudden, CB starts yelling at the kids, "Sit down now, nobody move." And like the kids, they know, they climb enough that they're like, when somebody tells you to sit down, you sit down. And so Christian says, "All right, adults, come with me." And we just do this traverse from here to like the other side of the building here. But I was trying to think, 45, 50 degrees, maybe 60, and we have approach shoes on, and we all just kind of like walk across, and I take a deep breath and walk across, and this traverse, and I get to the other side, and I turn around and I look at the kids on the other side, and I look down, and it's just like this cliff going into the water would have been one thing, but it's like onto the beach. And so we're standing there, and so this is like, okay, so what do you guys think about bringing the kids across this traverse? and so CB, he's like, "It's so beautiful up there, you guys. It's just like there's these giant pools of water, and you can see the whole lake, and there's this and then that. It's so awesome." And so one of the guys with us is an Exum guide, and he takes off and he walks up and he comes back. And he's like, "There's not really anywhere to get a good footing for a short rope, and there's no anchors, there's no nothing really." And everybody's just like kind of standing there, and CB's like, "We gotta go, let's do it, this is gonna be so cool." And somebody says something, and he says, "Oh, it's my wife and my daughter, they're here, and I wouldn't do anything to hurt them." And so I'm just sitting here watching this kind of hoeing and humming of all my friends, and I just started, my tears, my eyes started welling up, and I just, in my head, I was like, this is what we learn, and this is the heuristic trap of peer pressure and a mission, and we've been thwarted on a couple other missions, and then there's another big thing with the Exum family is that the owners always tell the guides at the very beginning of the year, if you ever feel uncomfortable with something, you just, no questions asked. You say, "I'm not coming to work today, I don't feel good about it," or whatever. So in my mind, this all happened in a couple minutes, and everybody's just standing there, and I just said, "No." That's all I said, "No." And everybody looked at me, and CB said, "Okay." And so then, the story's almost over. They turn around and walk back across, and I'm standing there, and my heart is beating so hard, and I'm sweating, and I'm anxious, and I'm like, I can't, I was freaking out about walking back across. So Exum guide comes, he sees me, he comes back over, "Step here, do this, I'm right here, you got this." I walk across, we get to the kids, and the kids all just stand up, nobody says a word, and they all just tromp back down to the paddle boards, jump into the water, dive in. And the rest of the day, we went back to the boat, and we just had this glorious day of hanging out and partying and having fun. And at one point, the kids there's this like slide that went off the back of the boat, and they're doing that, and we're drinking beers, and we're planning out the next day's adventure. And in my mind, the highlight of the trip is we look up to where we were trying to go, 1,000 feet above us, and somebody's like, "What is that up there?" And it was this amazing giant bighorn sheep ram standing up in the silhouette just as the sun was going down, just watching us in our shenanigans. And that's the end of my story.